for an industry that is the closest to the consumer. We are providing the goods that people wear and sleep on and eat. We, at times, are very far away from the consumer and are very sort of heady about how we want the consumer to be and not realistic about how they are.
You also had an early career as McKinsey, right? And if you take your McKinsey hat for a moment, what would you think in terms of the changes that have sort of happened in retail in general and for Saks Fifth Avenue?
That's a big question. Wow, we're getting right into it. I mean, look, absolutely. How's this? All right. So big question. Obviously, a lot of things, I would say happening over the last few years. Obviously, thinking about the pandemic, the changes, certainly from an e-commerce perspective, I'd say, and I think it's been talked about a lot, but I think the reality is we see it within e-commerce, we see it within sort of comfort with virtual events, live shopping, which I think will come to pass. But certainly the really rapid change, what would have taken at least a decade, probably more, happened in the course of months. And so I think we're very much still reaping the benefits of that. And I think we're going to see, over the next, year, 2 years, what are the pieces, of change from the consumer that are going to stick with us coming out of the pandemic, and what are the things that are going to, to sort of return. Obviously, we've seen a return to the stores, not a surprise. I think in moments of crisis, people like to say, stores are dead, and that's been said for 20 years. The reality is stores are not dead, but they play a very meaningful role, in the overall retail ecosystem.
All right, thank you. And Emily, Miss Errol, like Emily with a Y, is also a Columbia alum. We went together to the Oktoberfest, remember
We
that?
did. I showed him a picture this morning of us with big beers in our hand.
That's right, 10 years ago. A part of an executive MBA program that I'm running every year. We are going to Munich during the Oktoberfest, and it's always a lot of fun. The course gets fantastic evaluations, and it has nothing to do with me. It's all due to the Oktoberfest and the beer.
It is very fun, and there's a lot of beer.
Okay, good. So you were with a couple of other companies before, right? And now you're with Caspar, and it's sort of a similar question about sort of the big strategic view of sort of what has happened in the business, especially at Caspar. You're also sort of the first CEO that is not a founder,
That's
right?
Yeah.
So tell us about the big changes at Caspar.
Yeah, so good morning, everybody, or afternoon almost, I guess. My career, I grew up very traditional retail, Target, Gap, Old Navy, Amazon, and then a private equity-backed DTC company. So I've seen a lot of changes in 25 years of retail. And, if you go back and look at the top companies in retail by each decade, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, you'll see Kmart, JCPenney, you'll see companies that are basically vaccine centers now, right? That were in the top 10 20 years ago. And so things move quite quickly. And if you don't pay attention to what's happening, you have the innovator's dilemma where you're holding on to film instead of moving to digital or whatever it is, you can get left behind pretty quickly. And so I think like what Emily said, the pandemic, I believe, gave us a false sense of quickness in the speed of consumer changes because, as we've seen in the last year, not all of those were sticky, right? When everything closes, that's physical. Obviously, everybody's going to move online, but that is not everybody's preference. And so I think we're settling into what is a semi-new normal now. And for some reason, it is, even to me and my team, somewhat shocking, even though if you look at 2019 and forget the last couple of years have happened, it's a normal trajectory of growth online and growth in stores. It's quite normal. So you sort of have to mentally X those years out for a lot of reasons, probably, and just look at how retail will continue to evolve. And I think, yes, we got an abnormal bump, but things are sort of settling back to how they would have grown normally. I think, to me, the biggest change that I'm seeing in leadership right now is a few things. One, a lot of the people who work at my company are very young, and many of you have never seen an economic cycle like this before. And so people do not know how to manage through it. You've seen up and up and up. You've seen times where it's very easy to raise money. You've seen times where nobody cares if you make any money. That's not the case anymore. And so it's very difficult. People are a little bit paralyzed in their day-to-day because they've never seen this sort of economic downturn. And I think all of us are a bit confused. And then secondly, I think most, hopefully, good management teams have realized that you can't make people do what they don't want to do. If people want to shop on Amazon, they're going to shop on Amazon. So then you decide, do you want to be there or not, but you're not going to get them off the platform. It's very, very, I worked at Amazon for years. They're very good at what they do, and it's very difficult to get people off something that's so easy, as all of us, I'm sure, in this audience know. So those are some of the things I'm thinking a lot about.
If you take Amazon and Saks, okay, and now they have some luxury products there, but not most of it. Is that right? So is Amazon one of your competitors, or who's the competitor online?
Well, I mean, I think to Emily's point, shame on you if you work anywhere in the world of retail and you don't think about Amazon as impacting the way customers' expectations. It's incredibly core, I would say, to shaping customer expectation, certainly around delivery, around transparency, and I think has played a huge role. In terms of direct competition for us, no, not so much core. I think to your point, not largely the products that we sell, but certainly has a huge impact on shaping customer expectation. In terms of sort of our core competitors, it's probably who you would envision. So luxury e-commerce pure plays, department stores, the brands themselves, and then I think thinking a little bit more broadly about the luxury consumer in general. Often, our luxury consumer is thinking about physical purchases, also thinking about experiences. That obviously receded during the pandemic. That has come back to the fore. And so, from a broader perspective, there certainly can be switching between physical luxury products and luxury experiences, whether that's going out to dinner, going to a spa, going on a trip, etc.
And we'll get to omnichannel in a moment, but when I go to your website, I see a lot of curations going on, a lot of conversations in addition to just here's the product, right? And so it's almost like I get advice in the store, but something similar now online. Is that right?
It's a really core part of our strategy. So I always think about within our company, probably the most important relationship we have is between our customers and our sales associates, our style advisors in store. And that relationship is something where, when it works really well, it is incredibly powerful. We have style advisors who know their customers' birthdays, they know the anniversaries, they go to the weddings, literally. And we see that over the course of years and years and decades and decades. And so figuring out now, how do we, from a digital perspective, serving our e-commerce customers, how do we replicate that in a way that feels right and that is very scalable? It's one of our core, really core focuses. We have a team of actual physical, sellers, really akin to our style advisors in store. We have, a team that serves our digital customers. So that's one, pretty obvious sort of analog there. But also in general, personalization is really the way that we, largely, sort of serve the digital customer and look for opportunities to replicate that in-store sort of physical, relationship. And so we call our customer DNA, which is 250 plus attributes from both our digital footprint as well as our stores. Some that we've observed, some that we've modeled, and we really use that to power all of our communications. And so the goal there is to be able to replicate that, that in-store physical relationship, but do it in a way where, sort of almost before you want something, we're there in front of you suggesting something, and really in the end making it easy. I think in the end the relationship between the style advisor and the customer works because it is just so easy, and so we are always looking for what are the ways that are just going to make things easy, make them really seamless for our customers.
Right, and maybe we'll get into ChatGPT in a moment as a style advisor, but before that, they're probably not bad as style advisors. At Casper, it's a very different situation, right? In terms of how you started out and where you are now. But there is also this notion of omni-channel as well, although it unfolds sort of differently from Saks, where you have traditionally a particular customer relationship, and now you want to mimic this or bring it also online, and at the same time also coordinate it with the stores. But you guys started differently, but similar issues or not, or how do you see it?
So Casper is 9 years old, actually 9 years old last week, so we're still a very young company. Was started by 5 founders and was an online business with one product. And so selling one product online is very different than what we do now, which is hundreds and thousands of places. It's different technology-wise, back-end, distribution, operationally, it's much more complicated. But as it turns out, about 75% of mattresses are sold in stores. And so there's a real ceiling on our growth if we weren't going to get into stores. So we have 73 of our own stores, and then we sell in, Raymore and Flanagan and other distribution points in the US and Canada. And we've really had to evolve in the way I was talking earlier. You can't make people do what they don't want to do. So even though we might say, God, going into that mattress store on the corner is sort of a crappy experience, that's what people do. That's where people want to shop. And for some odd reason, which I don't really understand, we will drive 30 minutes to go to Costco, but every week, but you'll only drive 10 minutes to go to a mattress store that you do once every 10 years. So it's a very strange, psyche thing with people buying mattresses. And so that's what it is. So we need to play where the people are. So we've evolved our business model in that way. And our competition looks a little bit different. It's a very regional business. But for me, the way I speak to my team is our biggest competition is really the price of eggs and gas and interest rates, because you don't many times need a new mattress unless you are moving. And a lot of times you won't get one if other things are too expensive. So business is very tough right now because things are expensive and people aren't thinking about upgrading their mattress. And so it's a market share game in times like these.
Okay. I mean, it's always down to the customer, isn't it? I mean, the customer always decides and determines how the business should be going. At Saks, again, how has the customer changed? How do people want to shop nowadays?
Customers really, and this has probably been the case for a while, but I would say the pandemic probably brought it even more into the fore. The customers really want to shop where they want to shop and when they want to shop. This was always the case, but certainly the convenience and the sort of acceleration of luxury e-commerce that we saw over the pandemic, I would say, heightened that. And so, at this point, what we see, and I think in a choppier economic environment where, our customer is largely there, at this point, less impacted by the economic environment. But uncertainty is never helpful. Uncertainty is never, when you're thinking about, a large ticket purchase and something, that probably has a real emotional value. You want to feel really confident. And so having a choppy economic environment isn't helpful. And so really in the end, our job is to say, how can we really make it worth it? How can we really, whether it's around the emotional elements of that purchase and really driving the aspiration that's associated with our product, that's a big piece and a big focus for us. Or whether it's back to the personalization point of just making it really, really easy so that they're not going to they're not going to step back and think about it again and reassess it. We're just going to make it so easy and we're going to serve them in that way. I think in the end, customers are, when you're able to do a combination of those things, really make it emotional for them, and also really make it easy. That is the ticket. Being able to do that all the time on tens of thousands of transactions is of course the trick, and we do not get it right all the time by any means. But in the end, that's very much the North Star, and I think that's how you win in our business.
Right, thank you. We need to go to questions from the audience in a moment, so get your question ready. I have one last one. For my 2 panel members here. I'd like to talk about, new technologies that are currently hot. I'd like to get started with Metaverse. That's good for Casper, I think. And then we'll do the ChatGPT with Saks Fifth Avenue. I mean, the whole idea of Casper when it started was about getting people to dream and to imagine. Isn't that what is a great mattress and these sorts of things? So the metaverse should really help you with that too, no? It's all about fantasies.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this. I'm going to make a bad sleep pun. The mattress industry is very sleepy. See what I did there? But it's a very slow-moving industry. And I think what we see is there's a lot of technology that is very gimmicky used in the mattress business. If you go into a mattress store, they might like have you stand on some weird thing and scan your body, but then it doesn't really do anything. And so what we're trying to do is look at all the pieces of technology that are out there and make sure it provides actual benefit to the consumer. So I think there are ways that you can use technology to see inside of a mattress, which is very interesting for people. So you can see the materials that are used. You can see how the mattress was built. We have a labs called Casper Labs facility in Brooklyn where we test and design and build, not manufacture, but build all the prototypes for our mattresses. So we're using a lot of technology to help people see inside our labs, see inside the bed, see inside the product. And I think that is the best technology right now. Getting into the metaverse, for most mattress shoppers, they're just like confused enough about the experience and sort of want to get in and out, but that's not necessary. We're not thinking about what that looks like for our business yet. We're going to let other people lead first, and then we'll follow behind.
No Casper NFT yet.
No Casper NFT.
Right. So ChatGPT, what is it going to replace? Is getting rid of all your curations and all your, stylists and all of that? I mean, can you just replace them?
I think we're probably very far from that. I think, look, it's incredibly exciting. I think that probably, AI in general, ChatGPT is an example, but I think AI in general is going to have the possibility to really transform the way we work. Very exciting. We take our brand incredibly seriously. It is our most valuable resource. And so whenever we think about introducing, whether it's a new technology or whether it's, something like AI that could influence the way we speak to our customers, what we show them, et cetera, it's the sort of thing that we will take incredibly, incredibly carefully. And so certainly something that we're looking at, nothing that we are doing at this point, because certainly from a brand safety perspective, we have to feel incredibly, incredibly good about what we're putting out there and what we're using to interact with our customers.
Okay, so let's take some questions from the audience.
I mean, I hate to say this, but the best way is give them a deal. People love cheap things. So, I mean, we retarget people who abandon their carts and offer them a deal, offer them more product knowledge, try and help them understand why this is the right time to buy. Urgency matters a lot for people, real urgency and sort of real urgency. And I think people just want to, and we all know this because we're all consumers, you want to feel good about the purchase you're making. You need to give people a reason why now is the time. Not next week, like Emily had said. Don't wait. Why not to put it down? Why is now the time? Is it an extra deal? Is it one more piece of information that gets you over the line? Is it, here's a super easy way to check out because we have Apple Pay and you didn't know we had that? Like whatever it is that can get that person over the line, but it has to show them sort of ease and give them confidence in the purchase.
So certainly influencers are, and sort of at this point, I think we think of them as content creators more broadly, super important for our business, especially so visual, and also looking to reach new customers, very important. And quite frankly, it's been a big source of investment for us, a big source of growth, really, nice performance, optimizations, et cetera. But as we think about being able to reach new customers and as we think about being able to tell a really authentic story, the reality is that customers are not trends, and those still very much exist, but they do not come from on high the way that they might have 20, 30 years ago. It's much more crowdsourced, and certainly and influencers have played a huge role in sort of reshaping the way that sort of anything is popularized. And so because of that, playing a role and being in the influencer world is incredibly important. And we actually find that it very much, it's not just a top of funnel tactic, it very much, for us, drives business. So it's something we're very enthusiastic about, and there's a lot more headroom there.
Well, I just had my review from my board last week, so I could give you a long list. Yeah, I mean, I think the retail industry has been pushed into quicker evolution over the last couple of years. I've been in this business since I could see above the counter in my dad's store, so I've been doing this for a long time. And I think that this has been an industry that's been gripping onto old ways of doing things because of real estate, because of talent, because of a lot of reasons. And we have a real talent crisis in retail right now because there are not a lot of leaders who understand how to run an omni-channel business, which is, by the way, very difficult and takes a lot of discipline, who also have the gravitas to lead big teams. Because a lot of the leaders are very young who have come up in an omni-channel way. And I don't get to count myself in the young people demo anymore, unfortunately. But so I think, yeah, I think this industry has a lot of, sort of has to look in the mirror and say, what can we do better? How can we evolve faster? How can we be more consumer centric? So, because for an industry that is the closest to the consumer, we are providing the goods that people wear and sleep on and eat. We, at times, are very far away from the consumer and are very sort of heady about how we want the consumer to be and not realistic about how they are. And I often say to my team, if you can walk into a retail store and tell their organizational chart, there's a real problem. And a lot of times you can. If somebody doesn't take a return in store that you bought online, if they can't do it because it's a different warehouse than from the other store, blah, 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 all this stuff, then you can just tell this isn't, they're not paying attention. So there's a lot of evolution still for our industry to do.
I say that exact same thing. If can you see our org chart in an email that we're sending? Can you see it in a promotion that we're running? It is, and I think to Emily's point, there's a lot of old structures, there's a lot of old ways of doing things, and it takes a lot of fortitude and a lot of time to change those and to break down. And I think in the end, it does get us a lot closer to the customer, but it takes a lot of dedication to do it.
The question was around iOS 14. I mean, the changes with iOS 14 have been brutal for business. It's been very difficult. You can see a lot of DTC companies over the past year and a half really struggling. And when you go into department stores or your local mall, you will see a lot of DTC companies now sell in store. And that's because media rates have gone up and it's much, much harder with iOS 14 to be profitable. And turns out also people like to shop in stores, as it turns out. So it's been really hard, and we've had to get a lot smarter. I was wrong because when this happened, thought, well, Google and Facebook have to figure this out fast because they have to, and still we haven't figured it out yet. So there's a lot of work to do there, but it's been tough.
Sure. So we are at the very tail end of a multi-year, about $275 million renovation of our flagship store on Fifth Avenue. Hopefully you have been there. Hopefully you know it. We do have a Rem Koolhaus designed escalator that goes between our lower level and our second floor. Really beautiful. I think actually a really great sort of representation of our brand. Sort of this mixing of old and new. It's this beautiful iridescent escalator, very much worth checking out. It actually has inspired a lot of our creative. I think in terms of sort of the physical space, I think actually similar to what Emily said, we are not interested in sort of technology for technology's sake. And I think sometimes I look at those, store of the future, sort of work streams or discussions. And I think often I look back over the last 10 to 15 years, and I think not much has probably panned out because in the end, I think, and I think for us, our, sort of physical updates have been around how do we get closer, how do we make that relationship between our style advisor and our customer that much more powerful. So how do we get closer? How do we get our customer to be able to interact with product more? How do we open up the store, bringing in more light, more sight lines, those sorts of things, really making it an inclusive feeling. And so the focus is more around sort of the emotional element and much less of a sort of in-store technology focus.
In store, we've decided over the last year that we have to hire at least one person in store who has come from the mattress or the furniture industry, because it's a very specific industry. You need to really, this is a very personal decision on what you're buying to sleep in. So to have somebody who can make you feel comfortable, who's gonna watch you lay down for 10 minutes, I mean, it's a weird thing going on. So it has to be somebody who can make you feel comfortable, who can talk to you about the technology, but also the feel. And so we've made a big change in our stores in the last couple of years from showrooms to actual sales floors, and done that by hiring people who can train in the building with people.
Okay. Thank you very much for your questions. Thanks for the panelists, of course. The future of retail. Thank you.